I didn't have no qualms about killing a pregnant woman. I plotted it out, and I did it quickly.
One man hid in the trunk of a car after ordering the murder of his pregnant girlfriend. Another watched 5 women describe the worst moments of their lives, and one wrote a book called If I Did It. These are not criminals. These NFL legends chose darkness, starting with Kellen Winslow II. The Winslow name used to mean something beautiful in San Diego. Kellen Winslow Sr. was a Hall of Fame tight end for the Chargers who changed the way the position was played forever. He was a community hero, a football legend, a father. His son, Kellen Winslow II, followed that same path for a while. He won the John Mackey Award at the University of Miami, meaning he was the best tight end in all of college football. He went 6th overall in the 2004 NFL Draft. He made a Pro Bowl. He earned more than $40 million across a decade in the league.
Kellen Winslow II seemed to have it all. He had an NFL Hall of Fame father.
And for a while, it looked like the Winslow legacy would only grow stronger. He got married in 2006, had 2 kids, settled into a nice life in Encinitas, California. But behind all of that, something was deeply wrong.
He went from being an NFL superstar to raping, attacking women, homeless women.
In 2018, Winslow was arrested and charged with raping 2 women, both in their 50s. One was a hitchhiker he picked up in his Hummer. The other was a homeless woman he lured with the promise of coffee. Both described the same terrifying pattern, charm that turned into violence the moment the doors closed.
The victims talked about how quickly he changed, which is not uncommon for some of these individuals.
That quick switch was something every victim described. One moment he was friendly and engaging. The next, he was a completely different person. But the charges did not stop at 2 women. He also exposed himself to a neighbor who was cutting flowers in her garden. He committed a lewd act against a 77-year-old woman at a gym while out on bail with a GPS monitor on his ankle. And when the news broke, a woman came forward about something that had happened all the way back in 2003, when she was just 17 years old and unconscious.
Is that true?
Was he having sex with you?
Yes.
Was he having sex with you at the time that you regained consciousness?
Yes.
She had kept that secret for 16 years because she did not believe anyone would believe her. She was underage. She had been drinking. She had slept with him willingly 2 weeks before.
I didn't think anybody would believe anything I had to say.
5 women, 5 separate victims. The jury convicted him on some counts and deadlocked on others. A retrial was set, and on the very morning opening statements were supposed to begin, Winslow took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to rape, assault with intent to commit rape, and other felonies. The judge sentenced him to 14 years.
It just leaves us with someone who can only be described in 2 words, and that is a sexual predator. And that's what Kellen Winslow II is.
His defense pointed to brain injuries from football and a 2005 motorcycle accident. A neurologist who reviewed the case, however, was not convinced.
A lot of his cases seem very premeditated. In fact, I remember the prosecution saying that he picked his victims based on who he thought he could get away with.
Premeditated, calculated, targeted. That is not what CTE looks like. That is what a predator looks like. And the Winslow family name has never been the same since. Rae Carruth. Rae Carruth was a first-round pick for the Carolina Panthers in 1997. Fast, talented, a wide receiver with a future. But what he did off the field destroyed every bit of that promise. In November 1999, Carruth's girlfriend, Sherika Adams, was 8 months pregnant with their son. After a movie date, she was following Carruth's car home when he slowed down and blocked the road. A second car pulled up beside her. A man inside fired 4 shots from a .357 Magnum into her car.
We seen Rae Carruth's truck, followed by Sherika Adams' black BMW, and we followed behind him.
The shooter was Van Brett Watkins, a man Carruth had hired. The motive was as cold as it gets. Carruth did not want to pay child support. He had offered Sherika money for an abortion. She refused. So he paid Watkins $6,000 to make the problem go away permanently.
He told me that he was having a problem with his girl. He told me that she was pregnant and that she didn't take the money.
Watkins wanted more than the initial $3,000 offer. He doubled the price, and Carruth agreed. Then the planning began. Carruth suggested doing it at an IHOP. Watkins shot that idea down immediately.
He said, "You could do it at the IHOP." I'm taking her to IHOP Saturday morning. I said, "The IHOP?"
The man who was supposed to carry out a murder thought IHOP was a ridiculous location. That is the level of planning that went into ending a young woman's life. Sharika did not die immediately. She called 911 and stayed on the line for over 12 minutes, identifying Carruth as the person who set her up. Doctors performed an emergency C-section. Her son, Chancellor Lee Adams, was born but suffered severe brain damage from oxygen deprivation. Sharika fell into a coma and died 13 days later. Carruth ran. Police found him 500 miles away in Tennessee, hiding in the trunk of a car with cash and a bottle he had urinated in. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to 18 to 24 years. He served about 18 and was released in 2018. Chancellor survived. He has cerebral palsy and requires lifelong care. He was raised by his grandmother, Sandra Adams, who did something most people would find impossible. She forgave the men who destroyed her family.
I'm raising Rae Carruth's son, and I don't believe that there's any way that I could hate a part of Chancellor and say that I love him unconditionally.
She even wrote a letter to Watkins in prison, telling him she had forgiven him because Chancellor carries his father's blood, and she refused to hate any part of that boy.
I'm almost grateful that it happened because it has shown me a part of me that I didn't know lived in there. I am bigger than I thought I was.
Carruth is free now, living quietly under a different name somewhere in the southwestern United States. Chancellor is still fighting every single day. O.J. Simpson. There is no darker family secret in NFL history than the one that unfolded on June 12, 1994, outside a Brentwood condominium in Los Angeles. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were stabbed to death. The prime suspect was Nicole's ex-husband, O.J. Simpson, one of the greatest running backs who ever lived. The evidence was staggering. Blood at the scene matched Simpson's DNA. A bloody glove found at his estate matched one at the crime scene. Size 12 shoe prints led away from the bodies. There was a history of domestic violence documented through 911 calls and photographs of Nicole's injuries. But the 1995 criminal trial ended in acquittal. The defense team dismantled the prosecution's case by attacking the LAPD's credibility, exposing Detective Mark Foreman's history of racist language, and raising doubts about evidence handling. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict split America along racial lines in ways that are still felt today. A civil trial in 1997 found Simpson liable for both deaths and awarded the families over $33 million, most of which was never collected. Years later, Simpson sat down and described what he called a hypothetical account of what happened that night.
The chapter 6, is called The Night in Question. And you write in the book, now picture.
He described driving to Nicole's house with a man he called Charlie. He described putting on a cap and gloves. He described taking a knife from the car.
As things got heated, I just remember Nicole fell and hurt herself. And this guy kind of got into a karate thing.
Then he said he grabbed the knife from Charlie, and after that, he claimed he could not remember anything.
And to be honest, after that, I don't remember, except I'm standing there and it's...
Standing there, surrounded by blood, with 2 people dead at his feet, and he called it hypothetical. His sister Shirley Baker maintained his innocence until the very end.
I know he did not kill Nicole and Ron.
She described a moment after the murders when their mother asked him directly if he did it.
She said, "Tell me, did you do this?" And he looked her in the eye and he hugged her and he said, "Mommy, no, I didn't do it."
Simpson went on to get convicted of armed robbery in Las Vegas in 2008, serving nearly 9 years. He died in 2024. The Goldman and Brown families never received the closure or the money they were owed, and the case remains the most polarizing criminal proceeding in American history. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was one of the most talented tight ends the NFL had ever seen. A star at Florida, a 4th-round steal by the New England Patriots, and a key weapon alongside Rob Gronkowski. He signed a massive contract extension. He had a fiance. He had a daughter. He had everything. Then in June 2013, Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player who was dating the sister of Hernandez's fiance, was found shot dead in an industrial park less than a mile from Hernandez's home. Evidence tied Hernandez directly to the scene. DNA, shoe prints, surveillance footage, and text messages. He was convicted of first-degree murder in 2015 and sentenced to life without parole. But the story behind the story is what makes this entry so devastating. Hernandez's older brother Jonathan revealed that their father Dennis was physically abusive to both boys in ways that went far beyond discipline.
When you literally have to blow on your brother's wounds because of the creases of a belt or handprint in your body and the burning sensation it has, and have a rule that in your household you can get beat, but you stay away from the face so other people can't notice.
That was the household Aaron grew up in, a home where beatings were routine, but only in places clothes could cover. Their father died when Aaron was 16, leaving a void filled with confusion, anger, and silence. Jonathan also revealed that Aaron had been sexually abused as a child, starting around age 6, and Aaron struggled with his sexuality his entire life, hiding it from a father who would never have accepted it.
I don't know if he would have been able to finish his sentence. Yeah, I don't.
That was Jonathan's answer when asked what their father would have done if Aaron had tried to talk about his bisexuality. He would not have even been allowed to finish the sentence. After Aaron's suicide in prison in April 2017, researchers examined his brain and found stage 3 CTE, the worst case ever documented in someone his age. His brain looked like it belonged to a 67-year-old.
So, Aaron's autopsy revealed he had stage 3 CTE.
Yeah.
I put some pictures up here. It's the worst case ever seen.
Was it CTE? Was it the abuse? Was it the secrets he carried his whole life? The honest answer is that it was probably all of it combined. None of it excuses murder, but all of it explains how a gifted young man could fall so completely apart. Ray Lewis. On January 31st, 2000, the night after Super Bowl 34 in Atlanta, Ray Lewis and his entourage got into an altercation outside the Cobalt Club. Two men, Richard Lawler and Jacinth Baker, were stabbed to death. Blood was found in Lewis's limousine. His white suit from that night was never recovered. Lewis was charged with murder, but the charges were dropped after he agreed to testify against his co-defendants and pleaded guilty to misdemeanor obstruction of justice. He admitted to giving incomplete statements and telling others to stay quiet. His co-defendants were acquitted on self-defense claims. Lewis paid a $250,000 fine from the NFL and settled civil suits with the victims' families for over $1 million each. Then he went on to become one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history, winning 2 Super Bowls and earning a spot in the Hall of Fame.
I was very open with how I shared Atlanta in my book because I wanted Atlanta to be heard.
Lewis framed the experience as a painful lesson that made him stronger.
I realize now that some things, some pains, you have to go through.
Yeah.
You can't go around.
Yeah.
You can't take a detour.
Yeah.
You got to go through it.
But the families of Richard Lawler and Jacinth Baker never got to go through anything. They just got left behind. 2 young men dead, no one convicted of their murders, and the most famous person involved became a Hall of Famer and motivational speaker. The missing white suit was never found, the knife was never recovered, and the full truth of what happened that night in Atlanta has never been told. Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison was the opposite of loud. He was quiet, methodical, and devastating on the football field. Alongside Peyton Manning, he set the single-season record for receptions and became a Hall of Famer. Off the field, he ran businesses in his hometown of North Philadelphia and kept a low profile. But in April 2008, outside a car wash Harrison owned, a man named Dwight Dixon was shot in the hand. Ballistics linked the bullet casings to a rare FN 5.7 pistol registered to Harrison. Witnesses said they saw Harrison shooting with 2 guns after a confrontation. A bystander's child was injured in the incident. Harrison acknowledged being present but denied firing any weapon. No charges were ever filed. Witnesses refused to cooperate. The code of silence in that neighborhood was stronger than the evidence. Dixon sued Harrison in civil court. Before the case could be resolved, Dixon was shot and killed in 2009 near the same area. That murder remains unsolved. No conviction, no indictment, no justice for Dwight Dixon. Just a Hall of Fame bust and a lot of unanswered questions about what the quietest man in football was really capable of. Jim Dunaway. Jim Dunaway was a defensive tackle who played on the 1972 Miami Dolphins, the only team in NFL history to finish a season undefeated. Before that, he was an All-American at Ole Miss and a star with the Buffalo Bills. After retirement, he lived quietly on a dairy farm in Mississippi. In July 1998, his ex-wife Noniel was found dead in a half-empty swimming pool at the house she had been awarded in their 1995 divorce. The autopsy revealed she had a fractured skull and was unconscious before she entered the water. Someone hit her, knocked her out, and placed her in that pool. Dunaway was arrested and charged with murder, but a grand jury declined to indict him. The divorce had been bitter. Noniel had received the house, over 800 acres of property, $1,800 a month in alimony, and half of Dunaway's NFL pension. He was reportedly planning to appeal the settlement at the time of her death. With criminal justice stalled, Dunaway's own children sued him in civil court for wrongful death. In 2002, a jury found him liable and ordered him to pay over $500,000 in damages. He was never criminally convicted and maintained his innocence until his death in 2018, but his children believe their father killed their mother, and the autopsy said she did not drown by accident. Todd Marinovich. Todd Marinovich never had a choice. His father, Marv, a former USC player and Raiders strength coach, decided before Todd was even born that his son would be the perfect quarterback. During pregnancy, Todd's mother avoided salt, sugar, alcohol, and tobacco. As an infant, Todd was fed only fresh, organic food. He teethed on frozen kidney and liver. At 1 month old, Marv began physical conditioning, stretching, balance exercises, medicine ball games. A football was placed in his crib. The results were extraordinary. Todd became a high school legend, broke national passing records, and landed at USC, where he started as a freshman and led the Trojans to a Rose Bowl victory. The Raiders drafted him in the first round in 1991, but the rebellion had already started. In high school, Todd was secretly drinking and smoking marijuana every morning. At USC, freed from his father's surveillance, he spiraled. Cocaine arrests, failed drug tests, LSD after games, suspension from the NFL, bouncing between the CFL and arena football, then years of arrests for drugs, public intoxication, and worse. Todd later described his father as physically and emotionally abusive. Marv threw Todd's mother across a room. He hit Todd in the face during car rides after bad games. Everything was about athletic output. Nothing was about emotional well-being. Todd eventually found some peace through painting and fatherhood, but the damage of being raised as a science experiment rather than a son left scars that football could never heal. The Robo-QB project proved one thing above all: you can build the perfect athlete, but if you break the person inside, none of it matters. Leonard Little. On his 24th birthday in October 1998, St. Louis Rams linebacker Leonard Little went out drinking with teammates. His blood alcohol level reached 0.19, nearly double the legal limit. Driving his Lincoln Navigator, he ran a red light at high speed and slammed into a car driven by 47-year-old Susan Gutweiler. The impact broke her neck and collapsed her lungs. She never regained consciousness and died the next day. Little pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. His sentence: 90 days in a city workhouse served on a flexible schedule, 4 years of probation, and 1,000 hours of community service. The NFL suspended him for 8 games. He returned that same season and helped the Rams win Super Bowl 34. Susan's son Michael was 15 when his mother was killed. He later tattooed the date of the crash on his shoulder. He described the destruction of his family in interviews, expressing frustration that Little never personally apologized. Then, in 2004, Little was arrested again for DWI, bloodshot eyes, alcohol on his breath, failed sobriety tests. Despite being a repeat offender with a manslaughter conviction, a jury acquitted him. He kept playing until 2009, made a Pro Bowl, and retired comfortably. Susan Gutweiler's family got a confidential settlement described as small relative to the loss. Leonard Little got a Super Bowl ring and a Pro Bowl selection. The system worked exactly as designed, just not for the people who needed it most. Brett Favre. Brett Favre is one of the most beloved quarterbacks in NFL history. 3 MVPs, a Super Bowl title, the Iron Man streak, the rocket arm, the gunslinger mentality. He was football royalty in Green Bay and a hometown hero in Mississippi. But Mississippi is also the poorest state in America. And between 2016 and 2019, at least $77 million in federal welfare funds meant for struggling families were diverted to benefit the wealthy and well-connected. Brett Favre's name sits at the center of that scandal. Favre Enterprises received $1.1 million from welfare funds through a nonprofit for motivational speeches and appearances that state auditors say never took place. Favre repaid the principal, but faced demands for additional interest. More importantly, $5 million in welfare money helped build a new volleyball arena at the University of Southern Mississippi, Favre's alma mater, right around the time his daughter was playing on the school's volleyball team. Text messages released in court filings showed Favre coordinating with the nonprofit leader and then Governor Phil Bryant on how to secure the funding. In one exchange, Favre expressed concern about whether the media could trace where the money came from. No criminal charges have been filed against Favre. A civil lawsuit seeking to recover the misspent funds remains ongoing. Favre maintains he did not know the money came from welfare programs and has sued the state auditor for defamation. But the human cost is impossible to ignore. That money was supposed to help single mothers afford childcare. It was supposed to fund job training for people trying to escape poverty. Instead, a portion of it went to build a volleyball stadium for a Hall of Famer's daughter. In the poorest state in the country, these stories prove fame and fortune do not make someone a good person. Some of these men took lives, some destroyed families, some hid behind lawyers and plea deals, and the silence of people too afraid to speak. But the truth always comes out eventually. Whether it takes 5 years or 50, the truth finds its way to the surface. And when it does, no amount of touchdowns or Super Bowl rings can bury it back down. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell us which story shocked you the most. And if you have not already, subscribe, because this is just the beginning.